my name is Shelly Fernandez and this is my fourth YouTube video, and today we're going to be making a Valentine's Day dress. Well, a dress that was supposed to be for Valentine's Day, but we can get right into it. So I went to the thrift store and went to their curtain and table sheet aisle and found these red curtains that I thought would be good for some type of project. And then I went on Etsy and found a pattern that I really liked, like I usually do, and printed that out, put it together, taped it together, cut it out like the usual. So after that, we laid out the fabric, and we put the pattern pieces that I need for the shell, which is the main pieces of the dress, onto the fabric, and we pinned everything on the fabric. And the way I usually do it, I usually line up the grain on the pattern piece to the selvage on the fabric, but some of the pieces were kind of, you needed it they're diagonal, so I kind of had to just place them in there in places where there was space. After that, we cut out all the pattern pieces. So like I usually do for my other videos, I lay out all the pattern pieces that I need for first step first, just so I know what I'm sewing. I'm not getting things confused and everything. And then we sew everything together. So for this pattern, I usually sew from the middle moving outwards. The pattern piece instructed me to sew the two sides first and everything in the middle, and then sew the two sides to the middle. After all that, I look at the pattern pieces, and some of the pattern pieces are lining and some of the pattern pieces are shell. So I find the lining pattern pieces and also lay those down on the fabric, pin and cut them, and then sew it all together like I did for the main shell. And then this is what the main shell should look like after sewing everything together, and also what the lining should look like after sewing everything together. Even though the lining is supposed to be a thinner, flurrier fabric, I decided just to use the same fabric that I have, just because I had a lot of it and it would give me some fullness to the skirt like I wanted it to be. So for the straps, I take the pattern piece that I cut out, and I had to fold it in half and then sew along that raw edge the whole way around. I had to make these thin strips with no raw edge showings, and after pressing everything together, then we sew. And after sewing the pieces, I take the bigger strap pieces and press them so the seam is in the middle of the fabric. So well, it's not really in the middle, but I tried. So I gather all the pattern pieces that I need for this part, and I start at the bottom section first. So I start with this bottom section first, these two pieces, and pin and sew those together. And I pin the top piece to the two parts I already sewn together and sew that on as well. And then I pin the straps to each bra side of the dress, and then we sew that. And then we work on adding this top piece that's also a part of the bra area, and we pin the bra cups to that piece that we cut out, and we sewed that on. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I did this part right. I was kind of confused reading the instructions, so I was kind of just YOLOing it. But after making this dress and doing the cut part, I know next time what to do correctly. I made something similar to the small straps that we made but I made them thicker because I needed to add boning to them. I sewed them on, and the boning, and I'm adding that just so it acts like a bra, and it gives secureness to the dress. And this part was, I think, the hardest part. I actually did break a needle and had to replace that, and it was a lot of thick fabric, so it was hard to get my needle through. So I decided to just change my needle to a thicker one, but it was still like very difficult to get my needle through all that fabric. So after sewing that on and pushing boning inside the bra part, and we attached this part and like this dress part to each other, and then this is what it should look after you attach them together. I'm just realizing now I was in a rush to like get this dress done because I wanted to post it before February was over, and I didn't film some parts. But if you do want to make this dress, I'm gonna link the pattern piece down in the description. And then I pin the lining to the shell part, but I pin it so when the lining lays down, you don't see like the raw edges poking out from where you sewn it. So after sewing everything together, we do an understitch to the lining. You sew the seam allowance to the lining so the lining doesn't shift like up and like show while you're wearing the dress. And even though I didn't film this, I did press like everything out after I sew it, just so it's easier to work with and it looks a lot better. So first I sew up from the bottom to like where the zipper would stop, lining and for the main shell. And then I pin the zipper to where my waist would be, and I make sure to pin it down to where I stopped sewing. And then using the zipper foot, we sewed that all into the shell part first. I flipped everything inside out and made sure only the lining was hitting, make sure the lining was hitting onto the zipper, and I sewed the lining onto the zipper. So when you turn it inside out, you don't see any of like the raw edges on the lining. It's like very seamless. When you zip it up, it should look like an invisible zipper. Then we work on the back part, and I decided, as always, I always add eyelets to my dress so I could do like a corset backing. So I added like 3 eyelets to each side of the back, 3 on both sides evenly spaced out, and it'll just be like a corset backing. So first I sew like I sew 3/8 the whole way around the skirt. I fold the skirt onto where I sewed first, and then I sew again, but like really close to the edge of the fabric, and then I snip off all the extra that was left, and then I fold it in again and sew close to the edge again, just to make the tiniest hem I could, if you could see that. And I did that both for the shell and the lining. Now we talk about these roses that I made. I just looked up a video on how to make roses out of fabric, and the instructions were I cut out like a thicker strip on the bias line, and then as you can see, I sew it like diagonally, and then I fold it in so it like all comes together. And after sewing it together, I hand stitch a gather stitch on the raw edge of the rose that I made. And then after gathering everything together, I take the end of the long gathered strip and start rolling it up really as tight as I can to make a rose. And to keep that rose shape, I hand sewed all like the rolled up pieces together at the bottom and just kept hand sewing over under as much as I could, just to make sure everything would be like together and wouldn't like fall apart. I made 2 of those roses and I hand sewed them onto the dress like this. Dress was finally finished. And again, I did take pictures of this dress and they came out really well, so we can get into that section of this video. Wait, I'll just walk up.
Get ready, set, go. I'm gonna start it and then go ahead.
And I think that is everything for this video. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and if you want to see more pictures of this dress or pictures of my other projects, you can go on Instagram and follow me there, or on TikTok and see videos of this dress. But ciao, goodbye, adios.